and at 7 o'clock. So I'd like to open the meeting by welcoming all of those who are here in the room, the usual small number, and the somewhat larger number who are joining us online. I would like to make a comment that for those online, if you can come in here live or in person, not necessarily every time, but sometimes, it would be good, because you meet some very interesting and helpful people, and it also contributes to us being a club, which is what we call ourselves. So it might be a bit hard for some people to get in here in person every time, but if you can do it sometimes, you know, that contributes. Is there anyone here for the first time? Okay, I need to remind you all that the meeting's being recorded and will be uploaded onto YouTube. Our program tonight is we have a very interesting guest speaker whom I shall introduce in a moment. A little before 8 o'clock we will have an intermission. During the intermission we will draw our raffle here in the room. Those of you online will miss out on that unless you hold a raffle just within your own family. And then we will hear from Peter McConaughey, who will give the report on behalf of our president, and then Harry Lewis. We'll hear from Harry Lewis with the iHelp and some Q&A, and wrap up by 9 o'clock. Our guest speaker, I'm looking forward very much to hearing, and it's Raj Burli. And Raj is a volunteer with an organisation called STEM Professionals in Schools. Now STEM, like probably everybody knows, stands for science, technology, engineering and mathematics, none of which I was any good at. I'm an engineer, but never mind. And it's a volunteer program that facilitates partnerships between STEM professionals and teachers to enhance STEM education in Australia. I've got a blurb here that talks about Raj, but I honestly think it's better if Raj tells his own story, because in telling your story, we'll display your passion for what you're doing and lead into telling us about it. So Raj, I would welcome you to come to the lectern.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks, everyone. I am the aforementioned Raj. It's great to be here. Everyone can hear me okay? It's always good to double check that. I've had issues on Zoom before where I've spoken for about half an hour, nobody's heard a word I said. So it's always good to double check, and thank you for everyone being in person as well. It's great to hear from you all. So yes, I'm here to talk about a program called STEM Professionals in Schools. Now, we're a program that's run through the CSIRO. Just quickly, show of hands in the room, who's heard or knows of the CSIRO? Okay, that's most people. Some hands not raised. It's actually really fascinating. The rate of awareness of the CSIRO isn't what it used to be. So I always just double check to make sure people know what we do and who we are. But I'll jump into a little bit more about that. There's some new developments that we've been working on that I think you might all find quite interesting to hear about. Before I do that though, I'd just like to pay my respect to the traditional owners of the lands in which we're gathered and extend that respect to anyone that might be in the room. Thank you. So we are, of course, Australia's national science agency. We've been operating for a very long time, and we are one of the world's largest multidisciplinary science organizations. So everything from biology to technology to engineering, we have a research stake in. Anything that impacts Australian economies or any research interest that Australia has, generally, we will have a presence in, which I think is really cool. We have 5,200 dedicated staff across the country and some overseas working to further those interests as well. Now, I should say, if you have any questions throughout the presentation at all, if you're online or in person, feel free to just shout out. I'm more than happy to take them as they come. I'm not a fan of waiting until the very end for questions, so if you have anything, just let me know. So we are Australia's innovation catalyst, as you can see on screen. So we work with just under 500 different organizations from around the world to bring science to the fore, particularly from an innovation lens. So we engage with just under 4,000 different partners to bring that to markets around the world. And as of, or recently, it's been about $35 million worth of investment into the research and development of SME projects within Australia. Question? Small to medium enterprise. We also are one of Australia's largest deliverer of educational programs. So that number is actually higher. We're actually closer to 200,000 students annually across the country. So in every state and territory we have a presence, and we deliver STEM education programs to students. And that can vary from in-class opportunities, out-of-class opportunities, excursions, camps, the whole remit. What I thought I might do is just get a sense of who knows some of the things that we as a CSIRO have actually developed or invented. So without looking at the screen, can anyone name anything that we might have developed? Yeah? Wi-Fi is a good one. Yeah. Any others? Black box? Yeah. Sorry, did you say black box? Oh, apologies, I might have misheard you. It's orange, yeah, it's a different color entirely. Oh, wow. Yeah, within Australia. Anything else? Now, I know, like, some of you might see the total well-being diet just up there. I'm a little bit impartial to that. I prefer the seafood diet. Anybody heard of the seafood diet? It's where you see it and eat it. That's it. Thought I might open with a joke. So moving on to the more educational side of things, the importance of STEM education in today's world, or actually in the future as well. So this is something that is crucial to not just the present, but also the future of Australian students learning. So unfortunately, we are seeing that participation rates have lowered. So less students every year are taking up STEM, and a high number of them are actually departing or leaving STEM altogether. So when it comes to subject selection, they're not picking up STEM subjects as much as they used to. And that is a problem, given the future is going to be largely driven by a STEM capable workforce. So our performance in maths and science has declined. 75% of future jobs need STEM skills. That's actually, that stat is a little bit old. It's actually closer to 80% now. And the future is looking more like 90%, depending on who you ask. And obviously, just as you can see, 90% of future jobs will require some level of digital literacy. Depending on how far into the future you look, it's getting closer to 100. Any questions? Yeah. Why do we think that the future is going to be more digitally? Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Oh yeah, of course. So the question, and correct me if I've got this right, but the question is, why are we seeing a decline in participation rates? Yeah, it's multifactorial. It can be from students not actually getting an experience of what STEM is and then not aligning to that interest, or it can be as broad as I don't see the utility in STEM skills, or they're not seeing it being taught in a way that is aligned to how they might understand it or appreciate it. It is a very multifactorial answer to that question. And depending on demographic, it can also change. For example, if you're not at a school that has appropriate funding or resource allocation, it can be harder to get exposure to STEM because it does tend to be a more complex subject area and subject matter. So we do see an equity issue as well for access to STEM education. Hopefully that somewhat answers your question. Yeah. Absolutely not. I am all for teachers. I think we ask our teachers to do a lot. The curriculums are constantly updating. We're asking them to do more with less. They're quite often time poor, and particularly we do hear reports that it's harder to teach at the scale. Like if you don't have time to prepare for your classes, or if you don't have the capacity to obviously work and align to a curriculum, it can be difficult to teach under those conditions. So a huge part of the work that we do at Education Outreach at the CSIRO is empowering teachers, finding ways of giving them personal development opportunities, material, support to be able to better deliver and teach what they already know. Any other questions? Got one more. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah, well, and like that's indicative of a like a larger problem, right? Unfortunately, I'm not too involved with the development of the curriculums, or whether they're state or federal. But you raise an interesting point, and it is something that we do here. Is is the curriculum actually aligned to what we need to learn? Is the digital technologies curriculum something that is going to deliver the education that our students need for the future to participate in the future workforce? Cool. So what we do, CSIRO, Education Outreach, we try and tackle a lot of the problems that we've just spoken about and some of those issues. So we have a range of high quality STEM education programs that are, again, designed and geared towards bringing real world industry relevant STEM to the classroom and fingertips of students, really inspiring them to pursue STEM as a career path, or at the very least, understand that STEM skills are really valuable and transcend industry. So the skills that you learn in STEM classes can be applied broadly to life. So we do work to curriculum align a lot of our content, which is why we're able to then empower teachers to say, hey, this material is relevant to the curriculum. It is part of something that you have to teach. Here is how you can do it. Bringing real world STEM in with industry linkages, bringing experimentation into the classroom, a bit more diversity, which hopefully inspires students to take up STEM. Now, this is a list of all the programs that we offer. It's quite a broad list. Some of those programs have been running for about 16, 17 years. So STEM Professionals in Schools has been around for, 16 years. And that list changes every day. We like to maintain a dynamic presence, and we don't ever want to be delivering something that isn't relevant to students. So we ask, we learn, we seek information from teachers, curriculum, industry to help create programs that are going to really resonate with students. So specifically, STEM Professionals in Schools. What do we do? How do we do it? We bring real world STEM into the classroom with a really, really simple model. I'll touch on that in just a moment, but we work to strengthen teacher knowledge. Obviously, we want to help train the trainer, make sure they feel comfortable in bringing in real world STEM into the classroom. We boost awareness of STEM work. So students sometimes don't actually know what STEM careers are actually out there. Now, when we say STEM, people automatically, or science, people automatically go, oh yeah, it's physics, it's biology, it's chemistry, and that's sort of it, right? Wrong. So the exposure to what STEM actually is day to day is really crucial. And finally, inspire STEM learning and careers. So if you have someone that's coming into the classroom that says, hey, I work for Boeing, I do some really cool stuff. I get to design aircraft, or I get to work at Microsoft and I get to build computer systems that do some really cool things, that generally inspires students like, that's STEM? Amazing. That's something that I might actually like to do. I have a quick video that sort of highlights it, and I can talk to that a little bit more. But just before, any quick questions? Groovy.
With Rebecca and I, it's a team effort. Rebecca will come up with an idea and then we'll work on it together. We can usually find an example of an experiment which we can do with the children in the class, and I'll build a lesson around it. If you're passionate about your line of research and you want to inspire the next generation of STEM professionals, there's no better way to do it than to get involved in this program.
It allows me to take what I love in aviation to show the diversity of science-based career paths.
STEM professionals and skills is fairly unstructured, so there's no set template that CSIRO enforces. So that means you can tailor the program both to your own preferred ways of working, as well as what would work for the particular school at hand.
I can let students know what does a scientist look like and what do they actually do day to day. There's so many opportunities for women in STEM careers. So for me, coming to the school and showing kids this is where science can lead you is really important to me.
By being a participant in the program can help STEM professionals in their communication skills, their presentation skills, because it is quite a challenging audience at times. You have to keep your language simple, but you have to keep it interesting as well.
And they'll ask you, what areas do you want to be? But my suggestion is don't limit yourself. You want to be challenged. You want to keep awake at night. So do something for yourself, and you never know where it might lead you. Go for it.
Smiling faces there. That model that I was talking about is really that simple. It is just we take a STEM professional with any background in STEM. You'd ideally have a degree, but if you have years of experience in a STEM career, a STEM role, happy to take you. And what we'll do is we'll partner you with a teacher and we'll just say, hey, go collaborate. What does the teacher need? How can you as a STEM professional help contribute to the classroom activities? And what we end up with is a partnership. And that partnership can take so many different varied forms. So we have, as you saw in the video, we've got STEM professionals that are going into the classroom, conducting experiments, working with the teacher and the students to deliver something that is the gold standard. We see a lot of those partnerships delivering a lot of value and a lot of impact for students. On the same token, if it's something a little bit more light touch, you just want to talk about your career or your journey through STEM and why you think it's important, the work that you've done, you're also able to do that. The commitment levels are completely flexible. That's what we pride ourselves on. Ultra low commitment, ultra flexible opportunities. So no matter what your circumstances, we have a place for you, and there is something you can do to help contribute to the STEM pipeline. So like I've said, we are the largest STEM volunteering program in the country, over 8,000 partnerships since 2007. So we've been going for quite a while. 900 schools, we've worked with 900 different schools, increasing the profile of STEM within the classroom, and 325 organizations supporting a pipeline of STEM talent. So that can be anyone from as big as the Department of Defense, Microsoft, Google, all the way to smaller businesses that work in niche engineering or surveying, for example, construction. The variety is incredible. Now, generally, who gets involved? So just a few statistics for you, just in case you're interested in it all. It's primary and secondary schools, so we have no barriers for age or limit on that at all. So if you want to work with young kids or if you want to work with high school kids, we can make that happen. Principals, school leaders, educational organizations, the whole remit. As you can see, we're across the market, so there's no difference in our approach to public schools versus private schools, religious schools, open or combined, independent schools. Everyone is able to participate in our programs. We are present, as I said, across the country. We have representation in every single state or territory. You can participate virtually if you'd like as well, so that is an option. If you have any interest in participating in Tasmania or the Northern Territory, those are our key states to target. We don't have as many STEM professionals in those regions. So if you would like to participate, please let us know. Or if you have any friends, I know Hugh's in Tasmania at the moment, so I might reach out to him and say, hey, if you'd like to participate, this would be amazing. We do have a focus on regional and remote partnerships as well. About a third of our partnerships exist in regional remote areas of Australia. So as I was saying, what happens in the partnership, it can be any of those, and then so much more. If there is anything that you would like to try or attempt, we encourage you to work with the teacher to say, hey, this is an idea that I have that I think would work or would be beneficial for your students. Approach a teacher and see what they say, and you can collaborate, come up with something together. Again, the most common ones are career talks and presentations, and then demonstrations of the type of work that you do. We do get far more involved on some levels. So in the video, you would have seen a few scientists that have gone in. They've gone in for like 2 or 3 times for a month just to build a project, work on something unique the students then remember for a longer period of time. Obviously, that's time dependent. Benefits for teachers and schools. Obviously, there's a framework for connecting with industry. So if you're an industry participant or you have industry skills, it's just that, connecting industry to school. The skills that you have developed over a lifetime of learning, can you bring that into the classroom to inspire young people? So that is the real benefit. There's exposure to contemporary practice. So we often hear, schools aren't teaching what the industry needs. Well, this is a great way to solve that problem. It's to contribute, to be a part of that process, to develop and understand that the curriculum is evolving, industry is evolving. Can we bring the two together to create real impact for our students? The benefits for students, obviously, I think I've drilled on about this for a while, but it's opportunities to be inspired. It's awareness of what STEM careers exist out there and what the world actually looks like from a STEM perspective. That's your unique experience, that's your unique passion for the industry you're in, delivered to students. That final piece, awareness for career pathways, is quite a rare one. It's quite a key one, in that just being able to see the diversity of careers that exist within STEM is so crucial for young people. To better understand that I can actually be that, amazing. I can actually do that, is amazing. And it is something that students need exposure to, which is why this program has had a lot of the success that it has. We've had some remarkably talented STEM professionals with amazing careers, inspiring students like, I didn't even know that that was a thing that I could do. And once you've got that out of a student, you've achieved something really great, because you've fundamentally changed their perception, their future. For STEM professionals, key point, just giving back to community, contributing to the learning process for young people, and really having that impact, that tangible impact. If you're currently working, it is an exposure to how teaching is done currently. There's a capacity to develop and build your communication skills, your, in particular, science communication skills, being able to take a really complex topic and deliver it in a way that resonates with young people is a really unique skill, and that is often considered to be lost. So the opportunity to practice that, develop that, and build that with students is one of the largest benefits for STEM professionals that participate in our program. And finally, if there's any industry representatives here that work for a business, or you have any interest in that lens, it's the framework to connect with schools, to increase your brand awareness, to give back, to contribute to community. A lot of those big ticket items that you would find as part of a CSR initiative, which is corporate social responsibility, which is a huge thing that businesses are now focused on because it is important. That final point is also really crucial. A lot of businesses, because of declining rates of participation, are seeing shortages in their employment pool. So the number of people where they can actually attract and employ is declining. So a lot of highly skilled, highly technical roles aren't being filled because there aren't enough employees to fill those spots. So as participation rates decline, and as the world evolves and moves towards more technical fields or STEM capable fields, we're seeing a disconnect. And so contributing to that pipeline to make sure that it is something that we can resolve is really important, and is a benefit for industry. These are just some of the things that our participants have had to say. I won't read them out. I'll pause here for a few moments just for you to get a sense of what we do and the type of impact that we have. That last one in the bottom right is really what sticks out to me, particularly from a teacher perspective. Just that exposure. This isn't just about any one party. It's not just about the teachers. It's not just about the students. There's benefits for all involved. We create a almost circuitous system of learning and contribution that I think is really important. Cool. Couple of last bits on our program. So we don't just bring you into the program, then drop you in the deep end and say, arrivederci. We have program support officers that are in every state, and they will help you coordinate your partnership, work with you to find the right teacher. So we don't just automatically match you to whoever's available. We take a look at your interests. We take a look at the teacher's interests, what they actually need out of the experience and partnership, and then work together to create something that works for everyone, which I think is where our unique value proposition really lies. It's our ability to connect and create impact through that human touch. All of those, everything that I've spoken about, a lot of that information is available online at our website. You can just go to Google, type in STEM professionals in schools, CSIRO, it's the first link that pops up. We do host webinars and events, again, found through our website, and we are on LinkedIn. So if you would like information or updates on some of the type of work that we have or the partnerships that are ongoing, which you profile and promote our partnerships, you can read more about those on our website and on LinkedIn. And finally, you can register today, either through me, I can give you instructions, or if you have any questions, you can email us at stemprofessionalsinschools@csiro.au. Thank you.
Well, we have time for questions. I've got two.
Hit me.
Raj, STEM is a very wide range of professions, but any one individual is relatively narrowly based. So a teacher might be partnered with someone who's an expert in maths or someone in engineering. And being an engineer, I know that you can't be skilled in both. Is that too narrow a field?
Yeah, no, great question, and not at all. So there's multiple layers that sort of help, I guess, mitigate any chance where you might find yourself just a bit out of depth. So you're obviously working with the teacher, so they've told you what they're looking for. You've aligned on what your skills are and what you're looking for out of that partnership, and so you're only ever going to be talking about things that you're very well aware of, or contributing in a way that you are comfortable with. Yeah.
The other is an opportunity for professionals who have retired, or do you think they should be active in the profession still? Yeah,
so I mean, one of the people that we profiled was a retired engineer, and we have a huge swath of retirees that participate. We were talking about grey nomads just a little bit earlier. We've got retired STEM professionals that are now grey nomads that will literally travel Australia, and when they're in the right state, we partner them up with a teacher. They'll go in, talk to some students about what they do, just like a career talk. So it's nothing ongoing. They go in for an hour for a day, and then they drive on to the next state or the next town, and we work with them to find another teacher for them to work with. So retirees, absolutely welcome.
It's as a retired engineer manager, I sort of feel that I've got some skills that I'd like to be sharing, but nobody sort of wants these days. And this might be an opportunity to
absolutely
do something.
We can absolutely find you a teacher that would be looking for your skills, Barry. Let me tell you.
You did mention that the STEM numbers of people that are willing to do it are dropping. I'm just wondering, is there a brain drain in this country? Is that part of it? Is that potentially part of it?
That's a great question. It could be. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to lie to you. When you say brain drain, you speak of like the idea that students are getting trained here and then leaving the country?
That. Yeah, that, but probably possibly in industry at a little bit more mature level as well, perhaps.
As in they're leaving industry? Is that what you're...
Well, I'm talking about people that have matured and in a particular industry, but have found work overseas with special skills.
Yeah, we do see that. And there is a state almost in the academic context. So a lot of our researchers will go overseas to complete their postdoctoral research. Australia used to have a pretty strong presence, and we do in quite a few areas, but key areas, there's almost an onus to say, oh, yep, I'm going to go overseas to do my postdoc and my further research because that's where the opportunities are. If you know,
Yeah.
we are working hard, not just at the CSIRO, but at a governmental level, both state and federal, working to look at what are those next emerging fields of research and how can we really really invest and inspire the next generation to stay here and contribute to the local domestic educational market.
Thank you.
It's a great question. Thank you.
Any more questions? Kirsten?
Yeah, do you have it happen that kids have people come into their school and then they go off to uni and get a job and then go back and become STEM professionals themselves?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So case in point, I had a STEM professional who actually heard from someone from Boeing when they were in year 9, completely changed their trajectory in life, went from wanting to do accounting and business through to mechatronics engineering because of someone from Boeing going in and just talking to them about the work that they did. I'm really proud to say that that person has now gone and accepted employment at Boeing Defense. The great thing is, because of this program, like, yeah, I want to come back and talk to students because I did it. And I think other students can do it.
And you mentioned also that the companies are cottoning on that if they send their people to the schools, then they're more likely to get inspired people applying to work with them. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to that a bit more? Is that sort of what happens?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, there's a reason I work for the CSIRO is because I had someone come in and talk to me about the research that we do and that sticks with you. It's never a primary motivator, and we don't necessarily like to promote the idea of like, oh, yep, you work for X company, this is an opportunity to promote your company. Absolutely not. But a natural byproduct of having a STEM professional who cares, who's passionate, who speaks with enthusiasm about the work they do, it's magnetic, and it really imparts, it just sticks. It sticks with young people. And that might change, or the business might change, or the goal might be different, but the impact that has, even if it steers a student towards STEM education, whether it's a science subject or a STEM skill or just learning more about STEM, that's invaluable.
You've got, I understand you have some other skills, Raj, to do with young people and various committees and so on that you've been on. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Taking my CSIRO hat off, this is just personal, Raj, personal thoughts, so I should just hide that. I have for a long time been a huge passion of mine has been working with young people, finding what their voice is, what they care about, and then giving them a platform to talk about it, to speak about it, empowering them to speak about it. I've been a board director of 2 organizations, both internationally supported or having reach overseas, with the focus of bringing, one organization was to bring cybersecurity awareness to students and to young people, to make them aware of the world that exists in cybersecurity and calling for digital peace. It was called Digital Peace Now. We were funded by Microsoft at the time, and we did a lot of work on basically establishing like rules of the road or guidelines about how we as a society should think about cybersecurity and state-sponsored cyber warfare. Huge, cybersecurity and state-sponsored cyber warfare and cyber attacks disproportionately attack innocent civilians among the population. Young people are a huge part of that, so giving them the opportunity to speak to that and empowering them to stand up for what they think is right and what they think they should do, a passion of mine. The other organization is called UN Youth Australia, still operating to this day. UN Youth Australia is Australia's largest entirely youth-run non-profit organization. No one over the age of 25, so really centered around youth voices, youth empowerment. They've sent students, I mean, I think when I was a member, I went to the Middle East. I've traveled through to Israel, looking at conflict resolution, traveled through to Jordan, looking at the refugee crisis. So really delving into the depths of geopolitical issues, trying to understand, like, young people have a voice. We have concerns, we have issues, and we want to be able to speak to that and have it be recognized and listened to by the people above us, because it impacts us. I say us, I'm not that young anymore, but back in the day, that's what I used to say. And yeah, ever since then, just always had a focus on empowering young people to speak, which is probably why I do this role now.
What assistance, if any, I'm talking about STEM, you get from politicians?
Great question. Plenty. I mean, we're funded by the government, so the Department of Education gives us funding. And obviously the CSIRO, we're an independent but government organization. So the conversations around science education and STEM awareness, STEM skills, STEM capability are all things that are top of mind or front of mind for Australia's leaders. At my level, no. I wish, but no. Well, I mean, again, personally, I do. In my official role, no. Yeah.
Do we have any questions online? I see Andrew Lawrence thanked you, Raj, for an interesting STEM lecture.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Sean Clark. In the 70s and 80s, Telecom Australia and the Victorian SEC both had similar programs where they sent engineers and technicians into schools to garner interest with follow-up recruiting in tertiary. Okay. Any other comments on chat or hands up to speak in the loudspeaker?
We've got a question here.
Just a point on the term STEM. Do you think it's actually done damage, being that everything can be encompassed under STEM, therefore it's easy to tick off that they've addressed STEM by doing one aspect, even though it's such a broad topic? A lot of schools will make it even STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts and maths, and go, yep, we've done that because we did one thing, which it's such a broad topic. Each of those topics needs hours per week.
Yeah, absolutely. The premise of the question, do I think it's done damage? I wouldn't say so. I think the collective cognizance around the importance of STEM skills, so science, tech, engineering, maths, that awareness has been really important. I think that you can sort of see it as like two sides of a coin. Is we know now the problem exists. It's just how do we tackle it? How do we actually have an impact? And I think STEM, it's just an acronym, right? How it's used and the people that are having an impact, I think that's what has an impact. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that the use of just saying, oh yeah, we do STEM has been a net bad thing. But could we do more? Could we be better? Could we help support students, teachers, parents, community leaders, have conversations about STEM more effectively? Gain a better understanding of how to communicate that with people around you of all ages? Absolutely.
Do you have any like parties for your STEM educators? Do they catch up?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. We do have catch-ups. We do meet and greets. And pre-pandemic, we were far more prolific. And then obviously pandemic hit, things have changed. And now we're looking at bringing some of those meetups back. To answer your question, yeah, we do. Any other questions about anything in general?
Yeah, sorry to be hogging it. Like the smartphone and young people mental health. I know Jonathan Haid's come out with a book recently about just the dangers of like how we've reprogrammed our kids with smartphones, the biggest experiment ever. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah. What a topic to unpack. I'm going to cover that again and say this is personal thought and awareness. I think there is absolutely a I don't find like a diplomatic way of saying this. There is a balance or a line to be struck between the use of technology. As a technologist myself and someone who grew up, I guess at the cusp. I mean, I still remember dial-up very tangentially, but now I can't imagine a world without my phone. And my brother, who's like 10 years younger than I am, it's a completely different world. The way he engages with technology is very different to the way that I do. Are there negative impacts to any technology? Yes. It's about how we educate students to the, I guess, those downsides, and how we expose them to, okay, this is what's good, this is what's bad, this is how this tool can be used for a positive thing, this is how it is impacting you. That cognizance and awareness is something that we should be focusing on, because the last thing we want is fear. This polarization around it's perfect and there's nothing wrong with social media and it is the way of the future, versus we shouldn't be on it at all, or we shouldn't be talking about it or utilizing it at all. That can be quite detrimental collectively. Again, personally speaking, I think that there is a middle ground that says, all right, this is how TikTok can be used quite positively. For example, I have a TikTok account and I use it purely as an educational resource. If I want to learn how to cook a pasta in under 30 seconds, there is a TikTok that will do that. If I want to learn something very quickly, TikTok is a place where you can get that information. The downside is if you have a very particular algorithm, it's designed to be addictive. So you're going through and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So just being aware of what it's doing is, I think, really important. And that comes back to the piece of education. How are we talking about the use of these technologies? How are we talking about the impacts of these technologies? And is that accurate? Well done.
It looks like we're done on questions. And I must say that I knew nothing at all about this program, so it's been an eye-opener for me, and I shall definitely be looking at the website and seeing if there's an opportunity for being involved. What are you saying, Kirsten? There's someone else?
Sorry. Margaret Claughton would you like to plug Double Helix? I enjoy this and give a number of subscriptions for young people in my circle of friends.
Amazing. Well, I'm sure Margaret could do the work for me, but Double Helix is CSIRO's magazine, comes out of CSIRO Publishing. Highly recommend you check it out. There's a lot of online resources as well as a physical copy. We've been going for years and years and years, and it's a great way to just keep abreast of some of the research that the CSIRO is doing.
We also have Tom Rado with his hand up. Would you like to unmute and speak, Tom?
Yes, hi. Very interesting talk. I'm trying to encourage people, including my children, to do STEM, but they found the maths hard, so they opted for art type of subjects, literature and so forth. Now, I'm trying now to encourage my grandchildren to do maths and all that. So some of them are wrapped in it and they find it fascinating, whereas others find it too hard, so they opt. And when I ask them what would they do in tertiary education, they say psychology, philosophy, and that sort of thing. To me, as a retired engineer, math was very important, and so was science. So I would like at the end of this session, if the organization MelbPC user group would send an email with all the links and contact the detail, so I can pass it on to my son-in-law, who happens to be a vice principal of a school in Melbourne, and I'm trying to encourage him to take up the resources and on Friday, I'm going to have dinner there, and I'm going to pose the question: what does his school do to encourage people to participate in STEM? So the message is perhaps the chairman can send out an email with all the links so we can pass the gospel on. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, absolutely. I can, to Kirsten, I'll shoot you through some assets and material, and hopefully that'll get disseminated to everyone.
Thank you. Raj, I started to say before that what you've presented to us has been an eye-opener for me and really appreciated. It's also delightful to have a speaker who's passionate about what they're doing. Lots of people in this country are passionate about things, and in other countries, but they tend to be rather negative. They tend to be passionate against something. But to be passionate for something is great, and we'd like in return to share with you something that I'm quite passionate about. and thank you so much for coming, and enjoy that. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you.
Now tonight, Hugh is not with us. He's in Tasmania, I understand, and Peter McConaughey will step in and give a report on Hugh's behalf, and also there's a Volunteer Achievement Award to be presented. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Good evening, everyone. Hugh, as you know, is away on a family holiday in Tasmania and apologises for not being at this meeting. So instead, it is my duty this month to bring you up to date on what's been happening at MelbPC in March. Firstly, we start our monthly awarding of the Volunteer Achievement Award. In previous months, since its introduction in December 23, Hugh has referred to this as the Volunteer of the Month Award. After some discussion of this at the committee meeting last month, we realised that the Volunteer of the Month really implies that that particular volunteer was the best volunteer of that month at MelbPC. In actuality, the award recognises long-standing service to MelbPC by a particular volunteer. So we have changed the name to the Volunteer Achievement Award to reflect this. Which brings us to this month's recipient of the Volunteer Achievement Award. It's a very special award, but this month, sadly, a posthumous award. It goes to Colin Lampshire, who was a long time and significant contributor to a number of MelbPC seats. Colin began by taking over the convenership of the North East daytime and nighttime seats. During this time, he introduced digital imaging, and alternate meetings were dedicated to this topic. Subsequent to this, he founded the Android SIG, which particularly captured the enthusiasm for Android phones and tablets, and helped people to learn to use them as their use took off. He also ran the raffle at our monthly meetings, along with last month's winner, Shoylay, for many years. So, as you can see, a very deserving winner of the Volunteer Achievement Award. Normally we give a gift voucher to the recipient, but this month we're actually making a donation to the Foundation, which was one of Colin's favourite charities. We're also pleased that Colin's wife, Heather, is in the audience tonight, and I'd invite her to come up to accept the award on Colin's behalf, and I'm sure she can say a few words.
Thank Thank you. I did make a few words before I came, and of course I left them behind. So I've whipped up a few just as I came in the door. Colin would be delighted, and thank you for the award. He spent many years with MelbPC and the North East Day Group. I think he was press ganged into facilitating a group or becoming convener at some stage, but he really enjoyed it and was keen to help continue it. Colin loved to learn and to share his learnings with like-minded people. Two things came to me when I wrote this, and I thought, I used to tell him he should have been a teacher, but I guess in some ways he was a teacher. And he was also known for oversharing at times. So many of the group would know that he would have seen his photographs and news of his trips. He really enjoyed the trips, he really enjoyed the groups that he was involved with, and some of these groups morphed together. He worked hard to make the groups inclusive and fun. Everybody was welcome. He treated everybody as equals. He gathered speakers from wherever he could, and I noticed that Kirsten's been doing the same thing tonight. So he would come to different groups to see who was speaking and to see what they were useful to his group, and he would collar them and take them to him as well. He searched for the funnies. Every meeting he would have a funny video at the end of the meetings. And the friendships and the learning from the groups that he was involved in nourished him and stimulated him. If he was here, we'd like to thank those that supported him. And the things that people that came to my mind as I was trying to write this, that he spoke to me over the years, was Alan Jennings, who supported him with his funnies, and of course his challenging questions at every meeting. Dale and Peter Belmont and Lynn for their support and help over time. John Swale, Richard, John Grant, Kelvin for their expertise and answering questions. So we would like to have them in the audience to help him with the questions that came. So on behalf of Colin, I'd like to say thank you very much for the award and in light of this acknowledgement.
Thank you, Heather. The reason that we award the Volunteers Achievement Award each month is to encourage more volunteerism at MelbPC. The organisation will only continue to survive and thrive if we get enough volunteers helping us in fulfilling our purposes. And we thank the number of members that have come forward now to volunteer since the award was introduced. This month, we want to highlight the need for extra volunteers in the Web Development Group, which meets on the fourth Sunday between 2 and 5 p.m. online via Zoom. This is a group of volunteers that updates the MelbPC website each month, as well as making improvements to the design of it. The group would dearly like some more members. So if you have experience with web design, or even if you don't and are looking for a way to contribute to the club, then this is an area where they would love your help. Please email Hugh, our president at melbpc.org.au if you'd like to help. Other than that, we'd like to update you on our progress with developing a strategic plan for the club. Last month, Hugh mentioned that we were meeting with a consultant named Taylor Tran. We had this meeting with him and we discussed a number of positive ways forward for the club over the next 5-year period. The committee is currently exploring ways in which we can work further with Taylor to help us with this. We're having a further meeting this week with the committee only to discuss that. As Hugh mentioned last month, any strategic process that we go through will involve consultation with the entire club membership. We won't be just a committee doing things on our own. You will be involved. We will continue to keep you up to date as things progress. That's all for this month, and I wish you a good month, and Hugh will be back for the next meeting. Thank you.
Over the years, I've been very conscious. Thank you for coming. Over the years, I've been very conscious of the work that the committees have been doing. There's been some really difficult challenges along the way, and I just want to express my appreciation of it. I've never myself been prepared to be on this committee. I've been on committees elsewhere, and haven't made myself available for this one. But I do want to say, perhaps on behalf of those here, we appreciate the sacrifice of time and energy and stress that the committee people put into keeping the club on the ground. Thank you. Now I'm hoping that Harry Lewis is with us online. Harry? We've got a slight problem if you're not. Harry, can you unmute yourself? You there? Harry? Okay, we're running a few minutes early, which is a good thing, because in the past few months, in my view, we've tried to fit too much into the program and been cutting people short. I think we had a session on 3D printers that sort of took about, spread over about three sessions, but so we may finish a little bit early today. But Harry Lewis is one of a number of our iHelp team, and I think the iHelp is one of the most valuable services that the club provides to members. When I think Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m, you know, any member can ring the number and be assured of getting some help with their computer problems. And if the first person they speak to is not the right one, get passed on to another. And it's a really valuable service that's worth the annual fees by itself. And Harry Lewis is scheduled to tell us what's been happening in iHelp Live, and then answer any questions or problems that people either here or online might have. But for that, we need Harry Lewis. Well, while we're waiting for Harry, I was going... While we're waiting for Harry, I was going to tell you at the end of the meeting about a little encounter I had when I was waiting for a bus in Blackburn Road yesterday. That there was an older guy there who was sort of, lips looked like this, and he was trying to tell me, I can't. With great difficulty, he was saying that he'd lost his dentures, that his young great-grandchildren were visiting, and obviously someone got into his bedroom and knocked them off, and he couldn't find them. And he was saying it's a bit embarrassing because he was going to a meeting, but he was saying it like... Anyway, another guy who was at the bus stop, we had 10 minutes before the bus was coming, said, "Don't go away." And he went down the street, few doors, went into a house and came back out with a set of dentures and offered them to the guy. He put them in his mouth. No, they're too small. So I said, "Okay, don't go away." They went back to the house again, come back with another set of dentures. "Try these." "No, they're too big." "Okay, don't go away." He came back with a third set of dentures, and the guy said, "Hey, they're fine." And I said to him, "How did you have access to all of these dentures? Are you a dentist?" And he said, "No, I'm an undertaker." Do we have Harry Lewis?
Yes.
Oh, g'day, Harry. We're running a little bit early.
Okay.
So we apologise for that. Our speaker spoke very quickly. But I've introduced you. If you would be kind enough to let us know what IHELP's been up to, please.
Well, all sorts as usual. One thing I might pick out is the extent to which recent events have continued to create shockwaves with some of our members. I'm thinking in particular of what happened to the TPG email accounts. And I'm rather hoping all present company is on top of this one if it's involved them. Excuse me. But even now, we occasionally meet a member who's not entirely clear where the boundaries lie. And I think this is, if I can put it in that slightly technical way, as long as your email is working, you don't need to worry about this stuff. If it's not working, it kind of helps if you've got some idea of the difference between, let's say, an email account and what we call an email client, of which the most familiar examples are Outlook and Thunderbird. And this is where it gets a bit confusing. If you take either of those, I hope, familiar email programs, they recognize accounts that they have within their settings that always require an account, as we might now say, in the cloud, but these are conceptually or logically distinct entities. I'm most familiar with Outlook myself, and there, if you go to the account setting, you see a list under email of all the ones that are at least trying to make contact with the account in the cloud that owns the emails. And these days I can say owns because very few people are using POP. POP was the good old method where you had effectively the main repository of your email on your computer. And at discretion, you could leave what had come down to you as a copy on the server. These days, it's pretty much universal to use a system where the server is the mothership. It retains everything there is to be dealt with. And all you get on your computer is, these days, almost always a full copy. There are settings that have made it possible just to have titles or headings. And this kind of thing goes on in your mobile devices like phones and tablets, where behind the scenes, the email programs really are designed to make sure you don't run out of space on your device. And since that was all set up, mobile devices have acquired a lot more storage memory. It's very common now to have one with 128 gigabytes of memory. And with the introduction of solid state drives on computers, the storage space on computers has tended to shrink because when solid state came in, it was a lot more expensive than old spinning disks. And so we started on with quite small drives. But there is a philosophical or structural difference between the way that we tend to manage email on our desktops and the way we manage it, or rather the way it's managed for us on the phones. But the overall design of these systems does keep the email on the server in the cloud. And here's where clarity about what that account really means has come in with a vengeance, as a rather strange thing happened, which we've discussed here, of course, before, when a major provider of email addresses decided to abandon them to a third party. Most people here have a MelbPC address. They know that MelbPC is the grantor of those addresses, and it's still there certifying and managing, excuse me, managing our portfolio of addresses, if I can call it that, as we've moved the hosting, we've retained your addresses and we retain the responsibility. Now, what TPG did was to cut that link. And it's a very interesting development in itself, because that means that the status of those addresses is pretty much the same as the status of a Gmail address or a Hotmail or Outlook.com address, where the address is not related to the person, to the system providing your internet connection. And that brings up the other aspect it really helps to be clear about. And I think probably in any 1 week, we'll talk to a member who hasn't fully sorted out the relationship between their working computer with all its connections to the internet through an internet provider and the place where their emails lives. So I'm talking to you courtesy of Aussie Broadband, which is my internet provider, but I don't have an Aussie Broadband email address. I do, of course, have a MelbPC email address. I've also got a personal Gmail address, and I've even got a personal Microsoft address. But all those things are working through a connection certified and paid for by Aussie Broadband. And of course, behind that is NBN. So I'm just reminding everybody of this because it is, there's a gap between what most of our members have experienced. And I can remember when you got MelbPC internet, I think, I'm not sure what you started with, and perhaps somebody here can tell me this, but certainly there was a time when you got a CD that you put in the toaster on your computer and it would set everything up for you pretty well, and you got an email icon on your screen, and the very generous and hardworking volunteers who set all this up effectively hid from you what was going under the bonnet of that particular vehicle. And that's all fine until things go wrong. Every week we have, I would say, look, in iHelp, what you might call the modal job, the one we have more of than anything else, has to do with email one way or another. Another common problem, again, forgive me if this is very familiar to some of you, arises when members get their renewal notices and are invited to log in on the website in order to renew their subscriptions. In fact, they're invited to click a link in an email. And what happens then depends on what their computer regards as the main web browser. So when you click a link that belongs to a website, the link itself, of course, is just part of the email. We don't know when we send out your renewal notice what browser you're using. But Windows or macOS or your phone, your tablet, has a default web browser. And very commonly, that web browser tries to find the address you've given at a different site from MelbPC's. The most common version of that arises from members who've got Gmail accounts. But because we still have a tiny handful of members by now who have 2 Gmail accounts with the same email address. So the poor members come to a halt and they're being told that they're making an unauthorized attempt to access our website. So this is another example where having a little bit of an idea how these things work and who's doing what is really quite helpful. So what's going on, as I mentioned, is that to make it easy for the member, we put this link in the letter, in the email we send to you. but your computer has its own idea where links should be sent to. And it is still quite common for members to contact us in order to be, well, because they're finding they've hit a brick wall, in effect, because they're being told they're making an unauthorized attempt to access the website. And what will have happened, in most cases anyway, is that their browser has its own idea where to send the request to log in. Because there's quite a chain here if you think about it. You've all done this in slow motion when you've opened a browser. Could be Chrome, it could be Safari, it could be Firefox, it could be Microsoft Edge by now, and you laboriously type in a web address, and at that point, normally you will definitely get to the appropriate host. So for example, if you type in gmail.com, you will certainly get to Google. If you type in melbpc.org.au, you will get to the MelbPC webpage. Buried in the link you get for your renewal is actually a rather long string that you don't see unless you hover over it, that is going to carry the information needed for you to log in to our website, which is actually a two-stage process. So this is a bit complicated in its own way. Two-stage process, because the website itself is hosted by WordPress. And if you've never had a problem, you don't need to know that. But if you have, you will be aware of this because you'll see flashing on the screen a box with a W on top, which is the WordPress login. And then it normally will say, we're asking Google to log you in, because Google manages your login, but that is then validating what is actually a login to WordPress. So in a way, this is even more complicated than what you're seeing when you're dealing with email. In case anybody here comes across this one during renewal or when they want to change their address or anything, our normal recipe for dealing with that, if you have the problem, is to go directly to a Google website. And the easy one to recommend is gmail.com, because we're all familiar with that. And then they enter their MelbPC email address. And most of you by now, there's only one place where that's going to work, and Google knows that. For quite a long time after we transitioned from Microsoft, Google had two email addresses with the same, email accounts with the same email address. And here's a point where really understanding about accounts comes to the fore. It's quite a fun topic in its own way. When we move, can I just take a step back and give you a little bit of history? When we moved from Microsoft, we moved from the in-house system to Microsoft. And at that point, we all acquired what we called Outlook.com addresses. The service we had was actually a version of Microsoft's personal service, which was opened up to organizations to use with their own domain name. Ours is melbpc.org.au. At that time, anybody at all actually could do that. And I have a personal account that I created at that time using my own domain hosted by Microsoft, because that was, as they say, grandfathered. They didn't remove that thing, but what they took away from us was the right to change passwords and so on. At that point, all those accounts became personal Microsoft accounts with MelbPC email addresses. So for a long time, really, many of us had two email accounts with the same email address. One of them belonged to the enterprise service that we had. The other one was left to you as a private account. And that was all out in the open. What I wasn't ready for when we moved to the Google system was that some hundreds of our members had actually created personal Gmail accounts using their MelbPC addresses. And other people can tell me this. I think the main, at that time, Google must have been permitting people to create email accounts using any valid email address, as well as one at gmail.com. And I just didn't know that had happened. I knew perfectly well it had happened with Microsoft. So in the early days of our new system, plenty of members were getting ambiguous results when they logged into melbpc.org.au. Sorry, when they presented a MelbPC email address to Google to log in. It said, I don't know which one of these you mean. And so we had to go through a rather messy rigmarole to abandon the old account or rename it. And after that, things were very clean for the MelbPC addresses. But the reason we still have the residual problem is not, I think, because the members still have working Gmail accounts with our address, but because the browser they are using is keeping a login going for something else that it tries to access. Most of you have probably not even realized this is going on because it's something that makes our lives so easy. But until you tell them not to, most of our browsers retain logins to whatever account you've logged into. And you can, in the same instance of the browser, have logins running to several different accounts, and they're not necessarily email accounts. There may be accounts with, well, it could be something like a YouTube account, for example, which is actually now a Google login, but you might not be sending email, but you'll have a login running if you've got your own YouTube account, and this will go for many other services. Now, the browser kind of sorts that out if you're careful how you log in when the services don't overlap in interesting ways. It's when they overlap that your browser may think you're trying to get to the wrong place. As I say, the recipe we use is to do a clean login to Gmail using your MelbPC address, and only then you can try clicking that link. The most robust thing to do is actually to copy it into the place where you put the web address in the page that's already logged into your Gmail. Now, I'm just diverted down that path. It's very familiar to iHelp to try and explain how, first of all, if it's working, don't worry. If it's not working, it does rather help to get a sense of how these things are fitting together. It helps to know that an account in one of your email programs, and I gave the examples for computers, which were Outlook, which we now have to call Classic Outlook. That's another story. Anyway, Outlook and Thunderbird. Your phones may have a variety of different programs, and they do. Well, I'll leave the phones out of it till you ask some questions, because things get a little messy there, I'm afraid, because the software design world we're in is rather different from that we've got with our computers. So the main thing that, if you are in difficulties here, I think, tends to be arising with browsers. Your email program, like Outlook and Thunderbird, handles the accounts perfectly cleanly. You don't get conflicts of the kind I'm talking about. It's when you're using a browser, which is the classic way of dealing with Gmail, of course, that was introduced in a browser, and Google does not have its own desktop email program, whereas, as you know, Microsoft does. Microsoft Outlook is the classic desktop email program and is still probably the most widely used in the world on the desktop because Google is not competing there. Apple has its own desktop mail app, but that, of course, is proprietary to Apple and it won't run on anything else. And I think I'm going to pause there, hoping I've created enough puzzlement as well as clarification that one or two people might like to ask a question. Would anyone like to correct me on anything or ask a question?
I think along the way, you simplified things by saying if you have a problem getting into the MelbPC account, take the URL and put it into a browser that's already opened with Google or something like that.
Pretty close, yes. What we're doing is...
If you could say that precisely, then that's something that people could remember and not have to worry about the rest of it, perhaps.
I'm looking at my personal, I've got two profiles in my Google Chrome, my personal Google Chrome here, which is always logged in on one tab to my personal Gmail account. So, because nowadays many of us will have multiple web pages accessed through a single browser instance. In other words, you're not changing the program, you're not closing anything much, but you add a tab. Now, it is entirely possible to have tab pages logged into different accounts, but what you're doing is you've got a tab page where you directly log in to gmail.com using your MelbPC address. At that point, you're looking at your email, but it's that particular tab where you overwrite or you delete what's in the address field, and you can copy the URL, copy and paste from that subscription letter. Or, of course, what you can do, let's pause there just to be clear what the Master of Ceremonies have said. It works reliably, whatever else is going on in your browser. If you've got a login to your MelbPC Gmail account in the window in question, and then whatever else you put in the web address URL field will inherit that login, because that page is logged into our stuff. So you can play with that. For example, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go over to my other profile, if I can only find it. Just a minute. I'll do it now. I'll do it now in front. I won't share my screen because it'll perhaps delay a bit. I'm going to go onto my other screen where I've got my login running to my MelbPC email. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace the address in the address field above with melbpc.org.au there. Haha. Right, and it didn't do what I expected. Never mind, let's see what happens. Yes. Okay. I did get a choice there. I didn't expect to. But I did get a choice including my MelbPC account, and I did not need to log in again. Right. So you'll find that. I think it depends what other things are going on in your Google world. So I say that's the normal advice we give. When members are logging in, going to the website, go to the website. Excuse me. Somebody will tell me what browser that was. Every time it upgrades, it sings that song. I go to another browser for this. All right. So on the website, right? Another thing you can do, and maybe I will share that because it's a very useful little tool. Just a minute. Let me get that screen set up properly for you. There we go. All right. I want to make it a bit smaller. Just a sec. Oh, no, that'll do. That'll do. Let's do that. Right. Now, let me see if I can share my screen for you. Where are we? Where are you? Share screen. Right, share screen. Choose that one. Share. So, hoping now you're all seeing the MelbPC homepage, right?
Yes.
So there on the left-hand side, below the beautiful changing picture, you'll see two blue buttons. And blue is the lingua franca on the web for making something happen. So events calendar will not just, well, it'll take you to our calendar. Below that, you see members Google Access. Click that. You can get Gmail access, or you can go to Spaces. So that what you're being offered here is, of course, the Google services. We are, our clever web designers have put these shortcuts on the website, not primarily to help you with your renewals, which is down here somewhere, but so that you can get to our Google services. So this one here, another blue link, you see, here we are, we're using the same lingua franca. Spaces is where we chat. Gmail is where we get Gmail, and you will reliably be sent to the MelbPC business Gmail, not to your personal Gmail. Just click mine and see what happens, because the browser I'm using isn't itself yet logged in, and so it's gone and tried the wrong address in my case, because this particular browser is remembering my last login, which was on behalf of iHelp. But for almost everyone in the room, this will not happen to you, because you'll only have one email account with the MelbPC system. I happen to have more than one. So that's a way of making sure you get to our Gmail. As we're on the page, you can go and chat in Spaces by clicking that link. The Spaces one I'm clicking now and nothing happening yet. Hello. Let's give that a moment. I'm not sure what's going to happen. There we are. So that's the icon for Spaces. And this time, that is quite funny. I thought the thing would be linked more closely, but I'm using a browser that doesn't know about my MelbPC logins, folks. This was an experiment. And most of you, if you go, I'll go the back, see if I can use the back button there to show you. If you use these, you're not going to be given choices. But what I have noticed is that when I tapped the here on the left, it found another MelbPC address. Now, when I tick the one on the right, it went to my personal Gmail. So that particular link is more permissive. So it's found something that this particular browser remembered. But for most of you, most of the time, first of all, you can do what our Master of Ceremonies hinted at. You can use your browser, a tab that's logged in to your account will then respect that login when you feed it the link from your email. The only thing you've got to do, of course, is to make a copy of it. And I can't illustrate that myself, I'm afraid, but that's what you need to do. Stop video, where are we? New share, or share, there we go. Right, stop share. I'm stopping the share now, okay? So I'll pause again. And has anyone got any issues about the way to use the website to get your Gmail logins? as is the case with almost all of these things, if you have only one Gmail account and it's ours, so it's, we've got a business system, you will not have any ambiguity about what you're seeing when you click these buttons.
G'day, Harry. Martin Barrett.
Hello, go ahead. Hello, Martin.
Harry, sometimes if I haven't used my email account for a few days, it wants me to verify it's me. It might be 3 or 4 days, but certainly if it's a week since I've logged in, it says verify who you are, which is a bloody nuisance, but I do it. Thank you.
I get this too. As everyone in this room, I'm almost certain is aware, the big systems, organizations that run most of our email are fighting an endless war against the hackers who want to get into our accounts. And among other things, they do require us to log in again every now and then. I don't know what the rules are. Maybe somebody else in the room can tell me. But we all get this, Martin. I think if you haven't used it for a few days, that how often you're using it may very well be one of the parameters, one of the conditions that affects how often this happens. I mean, I've just been away for 4 or 5 days over the Easter weekend, and I was finding that some of my accounts said, please prove it's you again and enter your password. So I suspect that time not logged in on the device is a factor in this, because I will have been using the email account on more than a daily basis on my phone in particular in the interim, Martin. So again, in the background here is another factor which is important. The browsers hold logins. I believe they're called tokens. It doesn't much matter what the correct word is. So that's partly how come you can do more things in an account without having to log in continually every time you open a new tab. What's staying there is a special kind of passport that you're granted, in this case by Google, to do certain things before it says, wait a minute, you're trying to cross a border into another country, what's going on, right? So, but we're all, I think, experiencing more requests to verify our identity because of the pace of the battle with the hackers. I suspect, Martin, if you logged in every day on the same browser, because I think most of the information at your end is held in a browser. So if you're logged in on the same browser, you won't find that problem. If you close the account, of course, if you use the close button in Gmail to close, if I go over to Gmail, I won't bother to share the screen, but I can click on my avatar, my name there, and I can log out of the account. And then next time, of course, I'll be forced to log in. All right. So it's, and there are some very clean living computer users who religiously log out every time, just in case somebody gets inside their computer by some means and then exploits the fact that it's logged in. But I think most of us are slightly more laid back or confident that our routers and mostly our routers and our operating systems are protecting us in that way.
Harry, we've got only a couple of minutes left. There's one more question in the room, but we need to deal with it quickly.
Yeah, Harry.
Sorry, I've lost sound there, have I?
Lost it. The problem, I think, is not with the browser, but it's with the WordPress on the MelbPC website. When you select member login, it automatically picks up the login ID and password, and then if you've got the wrong one, it goes straight in and you get an error. It should have a pause at that moment programmed in so you can select a different account at that point when you click on member login.
I agree with that completely.
So that small change.
The fact that that happened so quickly is the main reason. Just to be clear, what we're talking about there is the member, the facility that among other things enables you to renew your subscription, right? It's your profile, which is inside the website. I mean, some of the time I haven't been talking about the website, of course, we're talking about mail, but yes, to get inside the website, I'm sure you're right that WordPress is in the picture.
Yes, I was getting into all sorts of trouble 2 days ago with that sort of member login, and it just picked up the ID that I was already logged in, automatically put in the password, and then of course bombed out because it was an invalid account.
Yeah.
It just paused at that moment and let me select the alternate ID and password, then those problems would go away.
You see, oddly enough, when I used what was actually Oracle, which is, I try to keep it as a clean browser that doesn't know my logins, but it's got a memory I hadn't cleaned. I'm continually cleaning it for that purpose and didn't clean it enough, obviously. But if you're coming in cold, but sorry, what I saw, what I was going to say was, I saw in both first case when I went to the Gmail login, I saw I'd got the wrong. You saw that I was looking at iHelp01 melbpc.org.au. At least I'm not sure I've been big enough for you to read it, but that was the email address, which happens to belong to the iHelp team, right? Because I'd been using it. But that was a genuine MelbPC address, but it didn't give me an alternative. Now, I think you may have seen, I think you did see, when I went to the Spaces login, I was delivered about 5 alternatives. But at that point, I could choose the right one. And what you're saying is we really need something like that for the WordPress login.
Harry, are you not going to talk about browser profiles at all?
Well, I mentioned them in passing.
Let me intervene here.
Yes.
It's gone 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And our practice is to close the meeting at 9 because that's what we advise. But Harry, if you're happy to continue informally,
sure, yeah.
Then the Q&A can keep going.
Yeah.
I would like to remind people, though, that if you think that this complicated subject is still complicated, that the whole meeting is recorded and you'll be able to go over what Harry's given us again at home and take it in, because there's a lot of material there. But so officially the meeting is closed.